The tent, the gathering place, the image of revivals past, the picture of evangelism where multitudes gathered to hear the name of Jesus. Most for the very first time. For many of us, our legacy began here with our grandparents, great-grandparents, who planted seeds of faith into future generations. The tent, where sounds of worship became sounds of revival, where cries of forgiveness became shouts of salvation, where all were welcome, the young and old, innocents and guilty, the sinner and the saint. In 2000, we built our first tent. Many of us weren't here yet, but some were and are still today. Small beginnings, just a few gathered, a remnant who saw a greater legacy than themselves. You see, you are living in the tent they built, the fruit of their sacrifice. Those who had greater vision than to simply see and receive, but had faith to seed and believe. We are the tent builders, the ones who stretch our faith, who still believe that nothing is impossible for God. This is who we are. This is our legacy. Some may call it crazy, but we call it faith. And we won't stop until heaven is full.
When I turned 65, I really struggled. I really was at a point in my life where I thought, is this all there is? I'd had a successful college career, military career. I had a successful business. I had coached at the high school level, football and baseball in San Diego. I had raised 4 kids. I had grandchildren. I had an amazing wife, at home, lived in a great community, but I was totally empty. I was totally unfulfilled. One Sunday, coming out of service, they had tables set up with a variety of mission trips. And I have no idea to this day what motivated me, but I went over and I asked someone, where is the farthest trip, the most difficult trip, the most arduous trip that you have? And they said, Shai in Mozambique, Africa. And I said, great, I'd like to sign my wife and I up to go. About 3 or 4 weeks or so before we were ready to leave, and we had been through the classes and the preparation, Mary Beth had a brain bleed. And after she recovered, the physicians indicated to her that she should really not take this trip over to Africa. So Mary Beth and I talked for a number of days about, should I defer as well? Should I go? Well, I had been in the military, I had flown, I'd seen a lot of the world, but I'd never been to Africa, and I thought, why not go? When we arrived in Shai, there was a group of the local people the attendees at the church and the kids and staff that met our van. And once we got out of the van, all of them came running towards us. And the kids started to jump on us and climb on us. And I tell you what, those kids were not well dressed. They were not bathed. There was a certain odor about them that was not comfortable. And it was very uncomfortable for me. And that convinced me that the next morning, this was not a place I could stay for 2 weeks. So I went to bed that night, came up with a story to share with Pastor Mel, our campus pastor at the time. And when I arrived on campus the next morning, I was getting ready to tell him I needed a ride back to Maputo. And he had just left to go to an outlying village, outlying community. So at lunchtime, I went over to where they were feeding the kids, and I started serving and feeding the kids. And there was one situation in particular that occurred. A young girl, maybe about 4 years old, came up to get her food, and she had a plate. It had some rice and some beans and some greenery. And as she was walking over to sit down with the other kids to eat, she dropped it. And without any staff, without any adults saying a word, the older kids got up. They picked up her plate, put it in the garbage. They got her a clean plate. And then each one of the kids, older kids, started putting some of their food on her plate. And food is scarce here. And I thought, wow, you would never see that in America. And I got to tell you, it hit me like a sledgehammer. And I had no idea what hit me other than the fact that I didn't want to tell my story anymore. I wanted to stay. And I wanted to be immersed with these people for a while. So I ended up spending the next 2 weeks here. And the pastor that led our mission trip, he and Mel, I told my story to them. And every night after the rest of the team would go to bed, they'd spend an hour or so with me, and they'd talk into me. And by the time I left Shai, I was totally committed to the Lord. Got back home, Mary Beth and I got baptized together. And what has evolved is today I'm on my 35th trip over here to Shai. And every trip to me is just like the first trip. It's just as exciting, it's just as fulfilling, it's just as motivating, it's just as impactful. One of the things when you come to a nation like this is you realize how critical education is. And we were made pretty aware on early trips that the public education here was not going to provide these kids the type of education they would need to go out in the world and be leaders. Secondly, you know, the generosity of the church, our church, to create the possibility of building a preschool through 12th grade, and particularly the quality of the teachers that they've hired. The fact that these kids here in Shai will get an opportunity to not only learn the basics of education, but a Christian education as well, and to have the ability to see how God impacts their world and how God is giving them this opportunity to get an education to eventually serve the people of their community. I mean, it's very, very impactful. I think one of the most powerful things is when you've come over here multiple times, you see missionaries and they're here for a year or two and then they're gone. And I think the one thing that the people see in Celebration Church is we've planted a campus. We're here to stay. And that really touches the people. You know, if you believe that the Lord wants to use Celebration Church, use the people of Celebration Church to build a kingdom throughout the world, this is a beautiful example of how that can be done. When I got back from Shai, I had a renewed purpose and a renewed passion. And when I've seen the impact of what Celebration Church has been able to do in a community, particularly from my first visit 10 years ago to the visit today, and I think about the people we've touched, the people we've impacted, the opportunities we've created, the ability to bring the Lord to these people, give them hope. What comes up for me is the concept of legacy. What is Craig Applefield going to leave behind when he's not here anymore. And every time I am here, and every time I see the growth of the Shy campus, and I see the kids and that matriculate through the program, and I see the staff, I think, wow, if I could be just a little piece of that, what a blessing that could be part of the legacy I leave behind for my kids, my grandkids, and my friends, and my people in my church.
A church that looks like heaven is a warm and authentic community. The Apostle Paul built tents so that he could build relationship with those far from Jesus. He understood that we build tents so that we can build tables. The table is a place of fellowship, laughter, stories, and communion with others and with God. Are we making room at the table? Is there a seat for the person you are praying for? God's heart is unlimited. There's room for all. And it's our responsibility to now step up and pull up a chair for others.
Heaven being full to us and not stopping until heaven is full is what we do believe is the reason why Christ came to the world. And we've always said we want to make sure that if you live in Austin, Texas, it's hard for you to not be a part of God's family. It's hard for you not to met this wonderful Father that we all know, who loved us so much that he sent his only begotten Son. And so that for us is why we do what we do.
Yeah, and when we first got here, I mean, literally, we're unpacking the U-Haul, and there's a guy that's walking down the street with his dogs, and everybody was like a target of our vision for heaven to be full. Every single person that we met with or talked to just in business, we would invite over to the house. And it was like, okay, we cooked up a church.
Yeah.
That's what we actually did, is that I would cook, we would share the vision together, and it was for the purpose of heaven being full.
How many sat in the Round Rock Library, you reckon?
Well, the first service we had 54. I think we set out maybe...
I set out every square inch that I could with chairs.
It was probably
I think we had
100.
300, no, total I was able to squeeze in like 300 chairs, but we had 54 people show up.
Yeah.
So 54 people, you would know like everybody's name.
Oh, everybody's phone number. I knew everybody's phone number. You know, every week the usher would come to us and say what the count was, you know, and I would be like, no, you're 2 off, because I would write down the names of every single person that was in the room and every single person that was missing that day. And so I have in journals like names of people, and this couple, and this family is out with 6 kids.
Well, and a family knows if the kids are there or not. One of the issues we have in today's world is, I think, that there's no family time at the table. People are not having meals together. That's not a part of the regular routine of life, the rhythm of life. And so nobody knows where anybody is, and we hear of the tragedies of so many of these situations around that people are not at the table, and the parents say, well, we didn't know. So tables, whether it's at home or at work or at IHOP or at Denny's or your food of choice, Italy, there's nothing more powerful that I believe opens up opportunities for people to connect to God and connect to one another. So John, when you think about the table in Italy, filling the table, filling the church, filling the kingdom of God in Italy over these last almost 7 years, what does that mean to you?
So the table is also a place of intimacy. So when you invite somebody at the table, you just don't invite like randomly, like you invite people that in some way you're connected to or you want to connect to. And I believe that that's our heart, that even perhaps we don't know them, but we want to connect them and bring them into a space which is considered an intimate space, a relational space, That's been important for us as a church as well, to create that table of relation with people.
When we invite people to the table, they know that you are really interested in them, that you want to hear their stories, you want to know what's going on, and you are bringing them onto the family. And so if they're feeling like, oh, we're feeling lonely, or we're feeling like we don't have a home, they know that they're going to be connected and they're going to feel loved.
Would you agree also that, especially in today's churches, whether it's in America or around the world, people don't want to just go to a church and go to a church service and listen to a preacher or a speaker.
Yeah.
They want more than that.
Yeah.
They want to engage.
They want engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want connection. Would you agree with that, Mary, in discipleship as far as the table and food and getting to know each other?
You know, He's the God who sees. And there's so much need just in our own little sphere. And the people that we touch, especially nowadays with social media and the impact and the reach that our words go, we have so much opportunity for people to be seen in the most pure way.
That's why I think the celebration for the 22 years, we have wanted to be intentional. We've wanted to be intimate. Yet we also agree that we can't plant churches around the world, Lori. If it was just a few tables or one table, we can't grow. We got to grow. We got to plant more tables. People don't want to drive forever to go to a table called the church or find relationship, find connectivity. And we've got to take the table, we've got to take these opportunities of connection to them. I think we've all agreed when our kids are hungry and we need to go out and get something to eat, we don't want to drive 45 minutes. We would like to have something right around the corner, and that's where people are today.
They want something close to them. They're like, if I'm going to go to church, I'm going to go to church in my neighborhood. I'm not going to go 45 minutes each way to go to something that I don't go to on the weekends anyway. And so the table has to be more than about us. It has to be about them.
When we think about the future of Celebration Church and the future of the hundreds of thousands of people that are still moving to this city and will continue to move even after we're gone, we want to leave that legacy of property, of buildings throughout the city and throughout Italy and throughout Mozambique. And first and foremost is we've got to continue to expand for the next generation, that your children will have this life that was inherited. And it's an inheritance that we're literally leaving for the next generation. Leaving a legacy means I'm going to let go of my life for the lives of other people. I'm willing to let go of me for the next generation. And I feel like celebration will never lack as long as there are people who want to let go and who are willing to leave a legacy of sacrifice.
So true.
Marano di Napoli is the city where I come from, and I spent all my childhood here. It was a good childhood, full of beautiful memories. Growing in Naples, I feel a great belonging with my territory, as many Neapolitans do. Unfortunately, we suffer a lot from the reputation of gangs concerning mafia. This happens because many people take profit from it. But the reality is that here there are many beautiful things that characterize this city and its culture. For me, it's important to be in community with people, especially with the people that helped grow me. I like spending time with every kind of person, young or old. I think everyone has something to offer, and I love being with the people that add value to life here in Naples.
Grazie. Se vuole vedere la casa andiamo a fare un giro sopra.
Sopra? Fammi andare sopra.
No, voglio riprendermi mentre faccio il caffè.
Ah, il bicchiere,
Sta qua.
bicchierino. Stanno piccolini.
Qua, qua.
Aspetta, faccio un caffè.
Digli che a Napoli è tradizione napoletana dare il caffè. Mia mamma non si trova se non vi offre il caffè.
Caffè?
Someone say that it was a tradition. It says that everyone wants to offer you a coffee, you know? So if you want coffee, okay.
Sì, diciamo che il punto chiave è stato una crisi di identità adolescenziale.
When my dad passed away, I was around 3 months old. During that time, my uncle was addicted to drugs, and my mom used to bring him into therapy, which was led by a Christian church. Someone from the church gave a Bible to her and prayed with her. That Bible would be the one that I started reading when I found the Lord. Being a child of a mafia boss, there was a huge tag on me, and people were expecting me to act in a certain way. I was making bad decisions. I used to go to clubs and live that nightlife, which used to be normality. I started realizing that wasn't me when I had to face that economic crisis in my family. Not being able to sustain that kind of life and being alone gave me the chance to dwell and look for God. I opened the Bible that was given to my mom, and God was speaking and transforming me continually. There started my path with God of restoration. 3 months later, I got injured and my physiotherapist brought me a celebration church. During my Bible readings, God was already speaking to me. But I had never put a foot in church, and this guy was telling me about community. I started attending the church and immediately established a special connection with Pastor John and the heart of the church. After I had a missionary trip in New York, I felt Celebration Italia was the right community to stay connected with. Small groups have played a big role in my life because it helped me to connect more with life of the church. I remember the first one that I took part was the one led by Pastor Giacomo. It is a good memory because it was my first time joining a small group. At church, I was used to seeing people only during the services. But at Celebration, there is life behind the scenes, and I enjoyed spending time with people, having fun and eating together. That's why I lead my own small group here in Naples. I think it's important to relate with people outside of the church. We have the responsibility of building bridges with people. We are not supposed to just see each other at church, but create a real relationship. Through real relationships, people start trusting each other and speaking of Jesus over their life and about His bride. We can't wait for people to just come to church, but we need to go out there and reach the people. If the art of the church is to change the city, we need to set up our lives, move and take actions in order to change our present and the oncoming future. We'll see it coming because God is the one able to do it.
To see more people come to know Jesus, our tent needs to grow. So we stretch out our fabric, we lengthen our cord, and we drive the tent pegs deep. All to see more people come to know Jesus. Stretching isn't easy, but it's what makes more room for more people. Moses stretched his hand, and the waters parted. The young man stretched his hand to Jesus, and his withered hand was healed. Stretching makes way for a miracle. It's time to stretch. It's time to lengthen our cords. It's time to strengthen our stakes. It's time to go out into desolate places and bring hope. To reach the nation for our loved ones, brothers, sisters, sons, and daughters. for our co-workers and neighbors, for those around the world, and for those close to home, until heaven is full.